Hi everybody, I'm Pia from Stitches and Scraps. Today I'm going to show you how to knit the Summer's Edge bucket hat. This video goes along with a full written pattern. You can find the link to the pattern in the description on this video if you're watching it on YouTube, or in the blog post if you're watching it directly on my blog. I'll be using Cascade Sarasota worsted yarn, which Cascade Yarns did provide me for this design. My color A is jade green, color B is yellow, and color C is chili pepper. The pattern starts by casting on 8 stitches with a long tail cast on. So there's 1, 2, now I do have a full tutorial on how to do this cast on, and I will link it on the video. 7 and 8. Now I'm going to shift these stitches to work magic loop in the round. So I shift them all to the cord, I pull 4 out, and then pull my cord out in between them. Sorry for the scraping on the table. Now I'm using a very small cord for the magic loop, which makes it a little tight. I normally recommend a much larger cord, but the cord gets in the way when I'm recording video, which is why I'm using a shorter one here. So now I grab my working yarn, I make sure everything is situated correctly, and I can pull this needle out to start working the first round. On round 1, we're going to be increasing after every stitch, and we're also going to be placing markers. So it starts with a knit 1, and then a make 1 left, which means I'm going to go find the bar between the stitches. And this first one's a little tricky, but do you see there's 2 little loops here and there's a bar between them? It gets stretched kind of funny on the first one, but there's that bar. Okay, so I find that bar and I stick this needle, my left needle, into that bar from front to back. Now I'm going to knit through the back leg, and if it's a little hard to get into, I actually like to roll my needle around like that. I find that easier to get back there, but I knit into the back leg, and that is 1 stitch increased. Now we're going to start placing markers. So I knit 1, place a marker, find that bar between the stitches, pick it up with my left needle from front to back, and knit it through the back leg. Knit 1, place a marker, find that gap back there between the stitches, insert my hook from front to back, and knit that through the back leg. Knit 1, place my marker. Now I'm done with stitches on that needle, but I still need to do the make 1. So I'm going to find in between here where the magic loop is, I'm going to find that horizontal bar between my stitches, and I'm going to insert my needle into that and knit it into the back loop, back leg. Okay, so that's 1 needle worth of stitches finished. That's 4 stitches that have turned into 8 stitches. Now I'm going to pull this needle out and push this needle in and knit the second half of the stitches on my magic loop here. Okay, so I knit 1. It's the same pattern all the way around. So I knit 1, place a marker, and make 1. Knit 1, place a marker, and make 1. Oop, I split the yarn there. Let's try that again. There we go. Make 1. Now, if you find it just too fiddly to do these make one increases on the very first round after the cast on, you can do one of two things. You can either knit an even round without doing any increases and then start the pattern, or you can use knit front and back increases instead of the make one left increases. I don't necessarily like either option because the make front and back leaves visible purl bumps, and knitting an even round gives you kind of a little point at the top. So neither option is a favorite, but if one of those makes it easier for you, you can go ahead and do that. Nobody will ever notice, especially if you're putting a pom-pom on your hat. There we go. Knit the last stitch, and don't forget to place another marker and make one. So place my last marker, and now in this gap between the needles again, I'm going to grab this loop and knit into it. Oop, push that marker out of the way. There we go. And so now I have 16 stitches instead of 8, and I have a marker before each of the increases. Round 2, and actually all the even rounds in this section, are very easy. We're just going to knit every stitch and slip the markers when we come to them. Now, this is also a great chance to count your stitches after doing all those increases. So this is 1, 2, 3, slip the marker, 4, 5, slip the marker, 6, 16. So that's good. We have the right stitch count. This is the very, very top of our hat. Now in round 3, we're going to use these markers that we placed earlier to mark where our increases go. First, we're going to knit one and make one left right after the first stitch. And I didn't put a marker here because it's the first stitch, so it's always going to be a make one left right after the first stitch. So I picked up that bar and I make one left. Okay. Now I'm going to knit to the marker, slip the marker, and then make one left. So in this case, that's going to be knit 2 stitches, slip the marker, and make one. Okay. And then I knit to the next marker and I make one left. Slip the marker and make one. So the make ones are always going to happen directly after the marker. Knit to the next marker, slip the marker, make one, and I'm going to keep doing that all the way around. Just knit to the marker, slip the next marker, and make one left. Okay, I'm down to my last marker. I slip the marker. Don't forget to make one left before the end here. And knit that last stitch. And that is round 3. Now, you're going to repeat rounds 2 and 3 a certain number of times depending on the size you're making. I'm going to just do it one more time to make a much smaller sample. The next step, once you're done repeating rounds 2 and 3, depends on the size you're making. If you're making the baby or the large size, you're going to have one more repeat of round 3 to do after you do 3 more even rows. So we don't want to move our markers yet because we're going to need them for that last repeat of round 3. So you'll knit 3 rows, then you'll repeat round 3, and when you do that repeat of round 3, that's when you'll remove the markers. For all the other sizes and for what I'm doing, I am going to knit the 3 rounds, but go ahead and remove the markers now because I don't need them again for the next increase round. So I'm just knitting every stitch, and as I come to the markers, I'm going to remove them. Again, this is a great chance to count your stitches. The purpose of this last increase round is to get us up to a multiple of 6. So each of the sizes is going to be increasing at a different rate, and a different number of stitches to get to a multiple of 6. I have 32 stitches. I'm going to increase 4 stitches to get to a multiple of 6 at 36, which means I'm going to place my increases every 8 stitches. So I'm going to start with a knit 1 and then make 1 left. And now I'm going to knit 8 stitches and then make 1 left again. And make 1 left. Now I'm going to knit 8 more stitches, which should take me beyond the end of this needle. 1, that was 7. Here is 8. That's 8 more stitches, and then another make 1 left. And then 8 more stitches. So now I've done 3 make 1 left so far. Do 1 more make 1 left. That's my 4th increase. And then just knit to the end, which should be 7 stitches in my case. Now your numbers will be different depending on what size you're making, so be sure to follow the instructions as far as how many stitches to knit between increases. So that's the end of my increases, and that ends the crown. Now for the body of the hat, I'm going to just knit around, just knit every stitch, no increases, nothing like that, for a certain number of rows. So round 1 says to knit every stitch all the way around, and then it says repeat round 1 a certain number of times. I'm going to repeat round 1 3 times for my sample, so I'll have a total of 4 rounds. You will have a completely different number depending on what size you're making. This gives you the height of the hat. Again, I'm just knitting every stitch around, and this is again a great time to count your stitches and make sure it matches. A little tip, I like to place my beginning of round marker after the first stitch instead of before it, so I don't accidentally drop it when I'm adjusting my magic loop. I've knit several rounds, and now I'm ready to add my first stripe. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my color B and make a little loop with it and leave a tail, and use that loop to knit the first stitch. Now for this sample, I'm going to carry my green up inside the hat. You don't have to, or you can. Either way, you can either cut it and restart it later, or you can carry it up, whichever is more comfortable for you. To lock them down here, I'm going to pass them over my needle before I finish this stitch. And then I'm going to bring my needle under those 2 tails as I knit the stitch. And then when I knit the next stitch, you can see it will have locked those floats in at the back, and that makes it easy to carry it up. So I'm now going to just knit every stitch for this round, and I'll come back to you at the end of the round. Okay, there's my last stitch, and I'm ready to start the next round. When I start the next round, to eliminate the jog that can happen when you change colors, I'm going to slip this first stitch and not knit it at all. Just slip it purlwise, slip that marker, and then start knitting with the second stitch. And that will minimize the color jog as you change colors for the stripes. And again, I'm just going to knit to the end of this round. Now for the smaller sizes, I'm going to do just 1 more round in this stripe of just knitting every stitch. There's no slip or anything, you just knit every stitch. And for the larger sizes, it's 2 more rounds. So I'll meet you back here at the end of this round. And again, it's just knitting every stitch. That was the end of my first color B stripe. Now it's time to join color C. And once again, you can carry the other colors up because you will use them again, or you can go ahead and cut them and rejoin, whatever is easier for you. I've got my loop of color C, and I'm going to knit with that for 1 stitch, pass the marker over, and now in this next stitch, because I want to carry all of these up to the next section, I'm going to pass all of them over my needle and knit around them, and then knit over them, and that'll lock all of those down behind that stitch. And I'm just going to knit every stitch in this round. For my second round of color C, just to add a little texture, this is going to be a purl round, but I'm still going to slip that first stitch knitwise. And that again is to control that jog of that color jog when we change colors. So I slip that one purlwise. Now I'm going to bring my yarn to the front and I'm going to purl every stitch around. Now you may notice that because we slipped that first stitch, there isn't a purl bump there. If that bothers you, when you're weaving in your tails, make a little horizontal line, a little horizontal stitch on top of the bottom of this stitch, and that will mimic a purl bump and you'll be just fine. It won't show that much, but if it bothers you, that's a way to fix it. Now I'm going to knit one more round of color C. And then I'm going to repeat those first 3 rounds of color B. Remember, we knit one round, then on the second round we slipped the first stitch and then knit around, and then on the third round we just knit around. So I'm going to finish one more knit row of color C, then those 3 rows of color B, and then one last knit row in color A. And then we'll be ready for the brim. I finished my stripes, including that one last round of color A, and now I'm ready to start the brim. The brim is worked in garter stitch with lots of increases to make it flare out. Because we're working in garter stitch, we're going to change from working the make one left increases to working knit front and back increases because the purl bumps will blend in with the garter stitch. So let's go ahead and start with round 1, which is an increase round. We're going to knit 1, slip that marker, and now we're going to knit front and back to work our increase. So there's a knit in the front, and now without removing that stitch off of my left hand needle, I'm going to put my needle in the back leg and knit into the back leg as well. And I'll show you that one more time. We're going to knit 2 stitches, and then we do another knit front and back. So knit through the front like normal. Now pull your needle around to the back and knit into the back of the same stitch, and then take that off your left hand needle. Knit 2, and then knit front and back. So there's the front and there's the back. I'm going to keep doing that all the way around. My last increase here, knit front and back, and then I have 1 stitch left at the end of the round, which I'm just going to knit, and that is round 1 of the brim. So what we've done in round 1 was taken every 3 stitches and turned it into 4, which means that we've increased by 1/3 of our total number of stitches. I had 36, I've increased by 12. If you had 60, you would have increased by 20. The stitch counts are all listed in the pattern, and the next 3 rounds are a good chance for you to count those stitches. So we're working in garter stitch now, which means that we've just done a knit round, so our next round needs to be a purl round. So we're going to purl all of the stitches without doing any increases or anything. We're just purling every stitch all the way to the end of the round. When we're done with this round, we're going to work 1 round of just knitting every stitch all the way to the end of the round, and then 1 more round of purling. So we're alternating rounds of knits and purls to make the garter stitch pattern, and we're working 3 rounds total without any sort of increases or anything for the shaping. So I'm going to do all 3 of those rounds and then come back to you. I finished round 2, which was a purl round. In between here you can see round 3, which was the knit round, and then round 4, which was the purl round. So now I'm ready for the next increase round, which is round 5. Now in round 5, we're going to be increasing 8 stitches total for every size. So the number of stitches between increases is going to depend on the size that you're making. I have 48 stitches, which means that I'm going to have 5 stitches between my increases. You will have a different number depending on your size. Mine's just a very small sample. I also want to show you what the beginning of the round is looking like. Do you see all that floppiness in the color changes? Don't worry about that at all. That is, you will get that, and that is coming from these tails being loose where we dropped them. Once you go to weave in the ends, it'll tighten up nicely and you'll get much nicer color changes. Let's go ahead and start the increase round. First, we're going to knit one and do our increase right away because that's what we've been doing all along. So I knit one, slip the marker, and then knit front and back into this first stitch. Okay, now's where it's going to depend on what size you're making. I am going to knit 5. You are going to knit a different number according to the pattern. Now I'm going to do another knit front and back. Knit the number of stitches you're supposed to between increases. And then knit front and back. And we keep doing that all the way around, and I'll meet you at the end of the round. I'm on my very last increase here, knit front and back. And then I just finished knitting all the way to the end of the round. Now remember, I have put my marker after the first stitch of the round, so that is the first stitch of my round. So that's round 5 done. Now for all the sizes, we're going to repeat rounds 2 through 4. So we're going to purl all the way around, knit all the way around, and then purl all the way around. Then we're going to do another increase round, again increasing 8 stitches evenly spaced around. So it's going to be a different number of stitches between each of your increases, and that information's in the pattern, but it's 8 stitches spaced evenly around. Then for only the largest 3 sizes, you're going to repeat that one more time. You're going to do rounds 2 through 4 again, so purl, knit, purl, and then another increase round of increasing 8 stitches evenly spaced around. Now I'm going to stop here and not do any more increases because I'm just making this little sample and it's just repeats of what we've already done. So I'm going to jump ahead to where all the sizes do just 2 more rounds, the last 2 rounds, where we repeat rounds 2 and 3. So that will be purl all the way around and then knit all the way around. And then we'll be ready for the I-cord bind off. So I'm going to purl all the way around for this round, and then knit all the way around for one round, and then I'll come back to you for the bind off. I have finished my last round and I'm ready to do the bind off. We're going to be doing this I-cord bind off, which creates a nice cord at the edge of the fabric. We're basically making a cord and then connecting it to the hat with every round. Now you're going to be doing it in the pattern, if you're following the pattern, you're going to be doing it in the same color. You're not going to be changing colors. For this demonstration, just so you can see it really clearly, I'm going to do my I-cord bind off in red, so you'll see which stitches are part of the I-cord and which stitches are from the hat. The first thing I need to do is cast on 3 stitches, and I'm going to be using a knitted cast on. So I'm just going to basically knit this stitch with the new color and then put that stitch from the back here onto the needle. I do have a full tutorial for the knitted cast on, which I will link in the video here. Now I'm going to cast on 2 more stitches and I'm going to just tack this tail down to kind of help it not be so floppy by wrapping it over my needle before I cast on this stitch. So there's my second stitch. Notice that little twisty motion as I'm putting the stitch onto my needle. And now I'm going to cast on the 3rd stitch. Okay, and remember, you won't have this tail to deal with because you're doing all the same color. So now I have 3 stitches for the I-cord and the rest of the green stitches for my hat itself. So let's get started. We're first going to knit 2 of these stitches and then knit these 2 together, and that's how it connects, right? So we're going to knit 2, okay? Knit 1, knit 2, all right? And then these 2 I'm going to knit through 2 together through the back leg, and that helps to kind of rotate that I-cord into the position we want it in. So see how I'm combining that last red stitch and one of the green stitches. And that makes that green stitch go away and I still have my 3 red stitches. Let's get rid of that marker. And I'm going to slip these 3 stitches right back onto my left needle. And then I'm going to do it again. So knit 2. Okay. Then I knit this red one with the next green one. So I knit through the back leg. For knit 2 together through the back leg. And you can see, again, we lost another green stitch, right? Keep going like this. That last round of hat stitches, the last round we knit on the hat, is basically getting eaten up by these I-cord stitches as we decrease them away one by one with every round, or every round of the I-cord. So you can see now I've been creating this I-cord here, and it's attaching it to the hat by doing those decreases. I'm going to keep doing that all the way around and come back and show you. I'm down to my very last hat stitch to bind off here. So I'm going to knit these 2, knit this one through the back loop, and now it's obvious because I changed colors that that was my last hat stitch. But the key for you is going to be when this needle is empty and your working needle has 3 stitches on it. That means you're all done. The last thing we need to do is graft these 3 stitches to our first 3 stitches to close this bind off and make it nice and seamless. So let's do that. You're going to cut a tail a little bit longer than normal, maybe like 6 to 8 inches, somewhere in there. And you're going to thread that onto a tapestry needle. So we're going to graft these 3 stitches to these 3 stitches, and I find it easiest to turn my work upside down. You don't have to, you can do it either way, but I just find it easier to work from right to left across the needle instead of the other way around. So we're going to start with the stitch that's closest to the top of the hat, and that's the last stitch we worked, and we're going to put our yarn through that stitch purlwise, like that. Now we need to identify our 3 stitches down here. Well, I see one V shape right here. Okay, there's one stitch. Then if I roll a little bit, I see another sort of V shape that's a little knotted because of the color change, but that's right there. There's the stitch above it, if that helps. So then this is the stitch it's coming out of, right there. And one more right there. It's a little bit tight, but that is my last. Let's get my needle under it. That is my last one. Now, if you're having trouble seeing them in the very first round, you can actually graft to these clearer stitches that are up farther. And I might do that for this one because with the color change, that's a little bit lumpy back there. So there's 1, there's 2, and there is 3 stitches. So I'm going to put my needle through, going from right to left, through the legs of this stitch. Okay. Then I'm going to pass this tail knitwise through the first live stitch again. And this time I'm going to take this stitch off the needle. Oop, not all of them, just that one. There we go. So you can see what I've done is I've gone down through this stitch, around the legs, and back up through this stitch. That's essentially what's happened. And that grafts that first stitch to the first stitch here. Now I'm going to pass this same tail purlwise through the next stitch. So again, we're going down through that stitch. Then we're going to go under the 2 legs of the next stitch on the bind off. Right there. Okay. And then knitwise through the second stitch on the needle and pass that off the needle. And one more time for one more stitch, we go purlwise through this stitch. We go under both legs of this last stitch on our bind off. and then knitwise back up through this stitch and take it off the needle. Give it a little zhuzh to make it nice and even. I have a little hole here because I changed colors, which I will sew closed when I weave in ends, but there is your nicely joined bind off. And this is what it looks like when it's all in the same color. Let's see if I can find it. Yep, there's my join right there. So you can see it if you really look for it, but it's pretty seamless from the outside of the hat. All that's left to do for this part is weave in ends. Now when I weave in the end at the top here, I'm going to use it to sew the top of this hat closed. So the easiest way I've found that I like to do that is to go in the same direction under each stitch one at a time. So I start with the next stitch after where it's coming out of, and I go from outside to inside through that stitch, and then the next one. I just like the way this looks in the end. And I've got 8 stitches here, so that was 3, 4, whoop, get under that whole stitch there, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So now I've gone under all of the stitches. I'm going to put my needle back down into the center, and I'm going to give it a tug, and this should close up really nicely for me. There we go. So now it's all closed. And then from the inside, I just weave in this end. There we go. Now it's all nice and neat and closed. And from the inside, I just weave in this end. And then weave in all the other ends, and that is the end of the hat. And that's how you knit the Summer's Edge bucket hat. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, share it with your friends, or leave me a comment. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel for more great videos. Thanks for watching.